Hey everyone, before we start today's video, I would just like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Atlas VPN. If you are like me, you're always moving from one place to another, like from home to campus, going out to eat, traveling for the holidays, and wait, hold on. And when I travel, I don't want to miss my favorite shows or have anyone looking at what I'm doing on my devices without me knowing. Atlas VPN and its premium plan is the best VPN deal on the market right now. Atlas VPN protects your internet traffic, but it also goes beyond most other VPNs by blocking malicious links, ads, and trackers. Do you know it's trusted by 6 million users? Check the amazing reviews on the App Store and Google Play. They never lie. You can also feel safe about Atlas VPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. If your computer decides to spontaneously combust, you can get your money back, no hassle. Get Atlas VPN for less than $2 a month with 3 months free by going to the link in the description and receive 30 days of premium for free. Thanks again, Atlas VPN, for sponsoring the video, and now let's get started. So, imagine you are walking into a store, you are ready to buy a new Skylander for your collection. You think, maybe today I will get Bash. Bash is cool. You go to the video game section looking for all the Bash figures, and then something catches your eye. What's wrong with you? Why are you blue? If this has ever happened to you, congratulations! You have just found a variant Skylander. But what's so special about this version? Is it even that special? Today I'm going to discuss every type of variant figure and what you need to know in order to distinguish them from each other. Variant figures fall into 3 categories: Reposes, alt decos, and chase variants. First, let's start off with the Reposes. Repose Skylanders are basically figures that have been previously released, which have gotten a re-release with an updated pose and some minor gameplay differences. These figures are usually denoted as series figures and are only applied to core Skylanders. However, technically speaking, light core figures and half of the superchargers also fall into this category, since they are variants of the original figures. There is no real consistent way to immediately denote a repose from a core Skylander. The only real way you can recognize one is if you have them right next to each other. Spot the difference. However, these characters are the most common types of variants. They came out almost every year and each do play slightly different from their first counterparts. With light core figures, they slam down on the ground with a light core blast, and with the series variants, they have wow pow upgrades, which upgrade or add new abilities to characters. And then there are the superchargers. Some superchargers are completely redesigned from the ground up and only really share their names with other figures. For example, Supershot Stealth Elf is technically Stealth Elf, but they are basically entirely different characters gameplay wise. Alt Deco variants are probably the variants you are thinking of when I mention special variant Skylanders. Alt Deco is the term coined by the community to denote Skylanders that are different from their normal counterparts by color and slight stat changes. You see, you could have Golden Queen, or you can have not. These figures are easy to denote their differences, since a lot of the time their colors are drastically altered. However, these figures are a bit more difficult to find. There are a lot of alt deco figures which were only sold at specific stores, most notably the legendary figures at Toys R Us, Nitros at Target. These are a bit harder to come by just randomly in the store. I'm a sucker for these variants. Just having them in these different colors is so cool and really makes them feel special. A cool thing also is a lot of these variants were part of special teams like the Nitro class, so they all followed a theme when it came to coloring or patterns, which in the case of Swap Force Skylanders was really cool because you could swap parts and have the theme almost perfectly match the design, as aside from Sleep Paralysis Demon. However, the most notable line of characters are probably the Dark characters, and probably the most notable variant of all is Dark Spyro. I love the Dark series of characters. They are so cool and feel so exclusive since you can only get them in special starter packs. And this line wouldn't have existed without the coolest Dark Skylander, Series 1 Dark Spyro. Dark Spyro was the only alt deco to be made in Spyro's Adventure, and he felt more special because of it. It really felt like a special edition of Spyro, especially since you can only get him in the 3DS starter pack. In a few countries he got a single pack in Wave 3, but the only reliable way to get him was from the starter pack. He also got his own artwork, gameplay trailer, catchphrase, and even had his own visual gameplay change with purple fire. He was basically treated like a whole separate character compared to an alt deco like the legendaries. However, we will get into that more in a bit. The whole Dark series of characters are great too. Donning this black and silver aesthetic, it honestly makes some characters look cooler than the normal counterparts ever could. And this treatment wasn't exclusive to the characters either. Vehicles also got the treatment as well. These toys felt premium compared to their normal counterparts. And that felt like the case for a lot of these alt deco characters too. I remember all of the Easter event characters came in this special egg-shaped packaging, and the pastel-like designs of the characters from this series was always a treat to look at. The first set of legendaries had a glossy paint finish which made them feel really nice in the hand. Every single alt deco character felt special. It never felt like if you got the legendary version of the character that you were getting the lesser variant of the character. Finally, we have the chase variants. Chase variants can range from a variety of looks and colors, but there is one constant: their limited availability. Usually chase variants have a limited run of prints, and finding one in the wild is not guaranteed. Heck, some don't even have a retail release, and are only obtainable at special events or business meetings. These versions are pretty easy to differentiate. Sometimes they just look like someone dipped them in glitter yogurt and called it a day, but some of these chase variants are so pretty. But unfortunately, their price range is very large. There are some chase variants which are dirt cheap, and then others that are very expensive for the same character you already have, but red. These characters don't even show up differently in game. They just have a special tag added to them, and that's it. I mean, they are cool as collectibles and stuff, but it would have been cool if there were visual differences in game for the characters other than a new title. With that being said, one of my favorite chase variants has to be this purple metallic Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball has to be one of my favorite Skylanders, and this version is so beautiful. The purple metallic paint is super pretty, and it encases the whole figure head to toe. The green eyes really pop, and just the overall design of the character lends itself greatly to this paint job. It even shows up as rare in some games, a denotion that I have only seen on this character. It's my crown jewel, and I got it for a steal. I got this thing for like $50 out of box, and now it's going for like $160 or more, even more in box. I would have preferred it to be in box, but I probably will never sell this thing, so I don't mind. I have a few other cool chase variants too. I have this bronze roller brawl, this blue bash I mentioned earlier, this green Gilgrunt that came with entire Xboxes. This one's a really cool one. This one is pumpkin eyebrow, and it came out around Halloween time. It even glows orange, which is super cool. One of the rarest ones I have is this employee exclusive Snowderdash, which was given out to the developers of Swap Force for Christmas. Man, it's so cool having this. It almost feels illegal. And those are the three types of variant figures you can get in the Skylanders franchise. However, there were bound to be times where these lines shifted a bit. So let's talk about these oddities a bit. First off, I want to go back to Dark Spyro and reveal the full extent of his unique situation of being treated almost as if he were a whole new character. I mentioned before how he had a bunch of personal additions. However, these changes spanned much deeper the more games we look at. First off, in Giants, Dark Spyro is the only variant to get his own announcer call out in battle mode. Every other variant just has their normal name called out, except Dark Spyro, which makes him stick out compared to the others. In Swap Force, Dark Spyro got a whole special bio page about himself, while all the other Dark variants didn't. And technically speaking, Dark Spyro was the only alt deco character to get a series repose. Dark Stealth Elf and Legendary Jetvac did get a Superchargers repose, but Dark Spyro was really the only one to get one, which also had a Wow Pow ability. Plus, in the 3DS games, he had an entirely different moveset compared to regular and Legendary Spyro, opting for a more close combat moveset. It's so strange because, like, it technically is an alt deco, but it's treated in such a unique way that it feels like a whole extra character, the 5th Magic Skylander, if you will. However, this kind of makes sense because of the unique circumstances in Spyro's adventure. This is something else. So this is Series 1.5 Double Trouble, a special version of Double Trouble which was sold in the Skylanders Battlegrounds mobile starter pack. So this guy is weird because it's the same mold as Series 1 Double Trouble, but it has the base and reads as a Series 2 Double Trouble in game, thus the 1.5 in its unofficial name. This was probably meant to get rid of excess stock or whatnot, which is weird because I thought Double Trouble sold really well initially. It's either that I was wrong or they needed a smaller toy for packaging because Series 2 Double Trouble is a much wider figure. Its weird nature has made it a chase variant in a lot of people's eyes, which I mean, hey, I'm down for that. I'll always gladly proclaim I have an extra chase variant available at my disposal. But what does that make Royal Double Trouble? This was a special version of the Battlegrounds Double Trouble that you could get at GameStop in some packages. It's an alt deco for sure, but this is the first and probably only instance of an alt deco for a chase variant? Is Royal Double Trouble the chase variant? What are you? Expensive. Now there is a chase variant of an alt deco variant. This is Flocked Trigger Happy. He is a fluffy variant of Springtime Trigger Happy in which one was randomly placed in each shipment of these figures. So yeah, expensive. What if we got a little more wacky with it? Let's play a game of Spot the Difference. Which is the chase variant? Joke's on you, they both are. This is the 601 Hot Streak. Now, why is it so special? This was a special version of the Hot Streak sold with every mobile starter pack of Superchargers. Basically, the special version acted as a key to unlock the whole game of Superchargers on iPads and stuff, because God forbid we didn't buy Superchargers more than once. Here's another interesting one, the E3 Hot Streak. This is another one of those not for resale ones that were given out at E3 2015. Guess where I wasn't? This version acts like an alt deco vehicle in-game, which is super cool. The colors are so unique, and being an online game, I could have flexed that my dad worked for Vicarious Visions. Used to work at Vicarious Visions. This is such a cool toy, and the extra detail in game is awesome, which makes this all the more confusing. So in Superchargers Racing, this toy acts like a chase variant. So is it an alt deco that acts like a chase variant, or is it a chase variant that's also an alt deco? It's dumb, that's what it is. Before we wrap up, I want to quickly talk about a few other strange variant figures with a pretty big Skylanders based YouTuber named SCL Matt. Matt runs the Skylanders character list website and YouTube channel, and he is a great source for not only learning about Skylanders, but also actually purchasing Skylanders today. He was actually the whole reason I found out in the previous video that there were glow-in-the-dark portals that you could get. So, hi, welcome on to the video.
Happy to be here.
You're basically like, you're the Skylander expert, basically, when it comes to identifying figures. You basically have a whole bunch of pages on identifying chase variants and just other Skylander variants in general on your website. Go check it out, by the way. I wanted to ask you a few questions about some variant Skylanders because I'm doing a video talking about variant Skylanders in general and some of the weird oddities, and I wanted to get your opinion on a few specific variant Skylanders and if you think their identification on where they stand is accurate.
I can do my best to help.
So the first question I want to ask you is, what is the most obscure alt deco variant Skylander that you can think of off of the top of your head?
Probably one of the early chase variants from, honestly, I think some of the ones from Giants are overlooked more so than even some of the ones from Spyro's Adventure. But you know what? I take that back. Pearl Hex.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is one of the prettiest variants out there that a lot of people don't know about for a couple of reasons. One, it was a trade show exclusive, but then it was only over in Europe, right?
Yeah. And something I realized is like the UK gets a lot of interesting like Skylander stuff. Like they were the only ones that really got single pack releases of the majority of those 3DS like starter pack exclusives. Like they did Dark Spyro. Yeah, they were the only ones. They got Dark Spyro. They got a boxed version of Punch Pop Fizz, but you could technically get Punch Pop Fizz through special promotions after Giants. Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah, so I mean, the main audience of Skylanders fans still resides in the United States. If it's hard to get here, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so a lot of people just never knew about some of those early variants. And to this day, honestly, unless they frequent my site, they may not be knowledgeable about all of those things.
This is something that I only realized people considered when I was like researching this topic. I know mostly about all of the variants and stuff, but even sometimes little things will pop up that pique my interest. Do you think the sidekicks count as chase variants? Technically speaking, they fall under this category because the sidekick like toys from Skylanders Spyro's Adventure and Giants get the special tag in Trap Team moving forward when you put them on the portal, because in Trap Team they introduced the minis, and some of those minis were basically just reprints of those sidekicks. So do you think those original sidekick characters count as chase variants?
To be fair, this is one I struggled with for a long time because, as you know, on my website, I try to categorize everything as much as possible. Those sidekick figures, especially when they were still just sidekicks, were tough because my at least early definition, and honestly still kind of to this day, my definition of an in-game variant is that the figure in the game looks as it does physically. And that's very much true of the sidekicks, even when they were just sidekicks. Like, it's not like you put Whisper Elf on the portal and Stealth Elf popped up. Where you put Whisper Elf on the portal and Whisper Elf popped up. To me, I finally made that decision that I'm going to call them in-game variants. Like, I get the argument for chase variant, and I'm not gonna fight anybody on it because I can see the case for it. But when it comes down to it and I have to draw a line somewhere, I call them in-game variants because they look like their figures.
This is a side question. Would that make Gnarly Barkley an in-game variant of an in-game variant? Would it make it an alt deco of an in-game variant?
That's a good one. Yeah, that you get an in-game variant of an in-game variant, or a chase variant of an in-game variant, or an in-game variant of a chase variant. And that's where trying to put all of these into like two groups and make it black and white just doesn't always work. And I mean, I've even tried making subcategories for some of these things. It just gets confusing at that point. And so that's why, in general, on the most base level, when I break things down on the website, it's either in-game variant or chase variant. Here's the list. Here you go. But yes, I would agree that if you want to dig down into it, that's a in-game variant of an in-game variant.
What is your opinion on the original Dark Spyro? He kind of had like a really weird special treatment compared to other alt deco Skylanders, especially to the point where it almost seemed like they treated him as if he was a separate character to Spyro in some cases. Do you think that's weird?
I think that's definitely a odd jump for them to make without any explanation for it. If it was something within the Spyro's Adventure story that we got a whole thing about Dark Spyro and this is who he is, and he's some sort of alter ego, and so we're gonna make him a separate character and you can now play as Dark Spyro, that would make more sense. For myself in particular, like, I didn't have a strong connection to Spyro before Skylanders. I didn't really grow up playing the Spyro games, and so I didn't have a lot of background for Spyro. I didn't know if Dark Spyro was a thing. Obviously there is a huge history with Spyro, but I couldn't tell you if there were already pre-made variants that they could bring into Skylanders as well. So I do agree that it did feel like they treated him as an individual character. And it kind of confused me because I heard other fans talking about it as kind of a separate character, and I didn't know if that's something they were making up, if that was something that I missed along the way, or if it was something from Spyro's history. So I think for anybody, especially folks like me who were just getting into Skylanders for Skylanders and didn't have a Spyro background, it's extremely confusing. I think it could have been handled a lot better. And I think they kind of lost themselves when they said, oh, we like this dark color scheme, this dark variant, and so now we're going to make these every year for other characters. And I think that's what kind of ruined it a little bit and made you question even more, like, is this a separate character? Because then we have Dark Snapshot. Well, wait, is that a separate character then? And I mean, even with Dark Spyro and the lore behind it, it's still not really a secondary character. It's kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. You could never have both of them in the same place at the same time. Yeah, as much as they enjoyed their lore and wrote their lore and made it work with the figures, that's one that still has a lot of holes in it.
Do you consider the villain senseis as reposes, since it's not the first time we could play as them in game?
I would not consider them reposes. The old, I mean, you're right, we got to play as them before, but they didn't have full move sets even in the game, and just the fact that you're using the term repose, like, well, what are they reposing? But if the traps had actually been molded to the villains instead of just generic shapes, then I think you could make more of an argument that the Imaginators figures we got were reposes.
So what are your thoughts on the E3 Hot Streak acting as both an alt deco and a chase variant?
Honestly, I didn't like that move. It was very surprising to me when we found out it was an in-game variant at all. Because as you mentioned, it was an event exclusive. It was a trade show item. And this, I think, is the only time that we got an in-game variant that was a trade show exclusive. Like, the next closest we come to is like Riot Shield Shredder or something like that. There are some people who have kind of sworn off collecting chase variants because they're too hard to get, and so that rules out all the trade show variants for them. This is out of left field. Like, we have not seen this before, and it kind of changed the game for a lot of people, I think. Now, granted, they did make it a little bit easier, calling it event exclusive, which meant it was going to be at like every event they went to, including like the GameStop convention. And so like all the GameStop employees had these extra cars to give away, basically. And I heard many stories of GameStop employees actually just gifting them to kids. It definitely changed the game for collectors, and it was more surprising than anything.
Yeah, it is the only kind of like alt deco that they gave out at like trade shows, but like it just makes the whole idea that they didn't go all the way with it even more confusing, because in racing it just shows up as special and it just looks like a regular hot streak. It's like, why did they what stopped them from programming it in?
My thought there is that it was a different team that was working on the racing side of things, whether it was a late edition or someone overlooked it, who knows. Yeah, there's no reason they should not have been able to make it appear in the racing version as well, because I'm pretty sure Golden Hot Streak appears in racing.
If there was one chase variant figure or alt deco figure that you could have that doesn't actually exist, what would it be?
I think I'd have to steal some inspiration from characters that they did make but aren't actually figures yet. Are you familiar with Lost Islands?
Oh my god. Oh, the alter egos. Dude, I wish Buddy Wrecking Ball was an actual figure.
I mean, two that I love that I thought it would make great variants. I mean, because they're on brand. They have a little bit of sense of humor. You could sell them for holidays. But they're Buttered Popthorn and Grillmaster Chop Chop.
Grillmaster Chop Chop I could definitely see. Especially his moveset lends well to like the theming of the character. The fact that he replaces his sword with like that, like a grill pitchfork, honestly would be really cool, especially for like that fury stab attack that he has. Yeah, dude, I loved the alter egos. All right, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this stuff. It was really fun.
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. I could do it all day, honestly. And
I mean, you basically do. That's what your channel.
Yep. The live streams in particular, people love talking about Skylanders. So
yeah, if you guys want to see more Skylander content, at least on a more consistent basis, definitely go check out Matt's channel. He basically does live streams almost every day. He does a bunch of videos relating to Skylanders content, and if you want to get some Skylanders for yourself, even if you don't have the games, he does run a website where you can buy a bunch of figures. Even some rare ones show up sometimes. So definitely go check it out. And yeah, thank you again for coming on. Yeah, so that's the crazy world of variant figures. I hope I maybe cleared up any confusion on which characters are which. So next time you see Rare Chase Series 3 Eruptor now for sale on eBay, you probably know it's a scam. And if you will excuse me, I'm gonna mortgage my apartment.
Supercharged.